Cool. We are live. We will give everyone kind of a second here to tune in. Let's give it a couple seconds. Cool. All right. Well, I won't wait any longer. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for tuning into another week's live stream. For those who are not familiar with this or who I am, my name is Charlie. I'm an associate here with the camera company at both locations. And every Wednesday at around 2 o'clock, I run a live stream for about 10 to 15 minutes or so, talking about just a various topic. And so this week's topic I want to talk about is what are some key differences between your phone's camera versus a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. Now, when I first started shooting photography years back, my first camera, I will pridefully say, was just an iPod Touch. It was a fourth generation. My first thing I ever shot was storms, and I still shoot storms to this day. But I would take my iPod out and I would, try and capture photographs of lightning. And the struggle that I always faced with that was if I ever were to get, a flash or I were to get a video of lightning and I zoomed in, the unfortunate problem that I was faced with was it was really blurry or there was a lot of problems in regards to how it was focused. So I eventually kind of took the endeavor of looking into photography more seriously, and thus my love for DSLR and mirrorless was born. So what I want to talk about today in regards to kind of the big differences in regards to, DSLR and mirrorless versus phone is we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to talk about the differences in sensor size in regards to cameras in a phone. We are going to talk about low light, and we are going to talk about lenses, which is why I have a couple sitting here in front of me. So what I want to start off by talking about first is we're going to talk about sensor size. For those who aren't familiar with kind of how a camera works or how taking or capturing an image works in the first place, is every camera out there, whether that is a phone, whether that is a camera, whether that is, the camera that I'm using to film this or on my MacBook sitting here, every camera has its own sensor. And the sensor is what brings in and captures that light to create what you are seeing here. What is an image of some sort or a video? The big thing that comes into play when it comes to DSLR, mirrorless, and medium format cameras and video cameras is the sensor size. So I have here with me, right, is a size comparison chart of different sensor sizes. So if you start here on the right-hand side, what you will notice here is it has a phone, and that little image where it says image is going to be your camera's sensor. So sitting behind my phone's camera lens is a tiny little sensor. Honestly, it's like the size of like a rice grain, if not smaller. And that is what's capturing my image. Now, when I move up in size, you can see within smaller point and shoots, they have smaller sensors and they get progressively larger. And you'll notice as we move into, I'll say kind of the furthest four to the left here, you'll be getting into interchangeable lenses or DSLR or mirrorless cameras. So sitting here in front of me right now is our rental for the Canon EOS R. If I take off a lens here, which is already one perk of a camera versus a phone camera, is interchangeable lenses, I have sitting in front of me right here the sensor. Now the sensor here, this is considered a full frame sensor. So it's the second from the second from the left on this chart. The perk of having a larger sensor, and you've probably heard us talk about it at some point if you ever come in to look at cameras, is the perks of having a larger sensor size correlate with every single aspect of your image. If you are looking to shoot low light, so astrophotography, if you are shooting indoors and poor lighting, if you're shooting sports and we'll say like a gymnasium, or you're shooting an event on a stage and it's dark, low light becomes a huge factor. And if light isn't going to be favorable for you, you're going to notice problems right away. So having a larger sensor size, how it works is there is more room for light to hit that sensor. You're not cramming in light to such a small spot on a phone camera, for example. So I have here as well pulled up is I also have a comparison of two separate images that I took about 2 minutes apart that were taken when I went to Iceland a couple of years back. So I want to quickly go through and I want to quickly pull up that image. So here is a comparison of two images that I took, one with my phone camera and one with my actual mirrorless camera of the Northern Lights. Now, you can probably assume which one was taken with my iPhone versus my actual Sony camera. The one on the left was just a simple, look up, wow, everything's green, and I want to capture that. And so I took a picture with my phone. You can see very minimally, all that I'm really getting is just this nice little, green sliver. There's nothing more than that. I couldn't go ahead and I couldn't brighten this up because already I'm seeing here there's a lot of noise within my image. So then we have here on the right-hand side, we have my image that I shot with my actual camera. The reason that this worked out so well was the image sensor size was larger, but I was also able to go out and change a lens to what my purpose was that I was shooting. So I was able to go ahead and whip out a 14 millimeter lens with a really wide open aperture, capture all those colors, capture a lot of the depth, get some of my foreground here in the bottom as well as if I zoom in here, you can see I have all of my stars here visible as well. So it was a huge benefit to have that available versus some other friends that I was with that was just taking pictures on their phone camera and they were struggling to get results. So low light is a huge factor. I want to jump back over to this sensor sheet so you can see that as I continue to chat. So let me jump back to that one. Cool. So there's that again. So that's the first that sensor sizes. The larger you go, the better your low light is going to capture. In addition to that as well, when it comes to different lenses, you have the opportunity to, I'll say, kind of exploit what lenses you purchase. So if you purchase a lens, for example, if you see kind of in the middle of this chart, APS-C or 4/3, that's a certain size of a sensor that correlates with lenses. So if you've ever seen from Canon and you're looking at lenses, it will say EFS. Or if you're looking at Sony, it would say just Sony E. Or Nikon, it adds a DX. Now let's say my lens, we'll do some easy math here. Let's say I get a Nikon DX lens that is, we will say 50 to 100 millimeters. I don't think that exists, but it just must be do my mental math a little faster. Let's say I take a DX, which is a crop sensor or a smaller sensor lens, and I throw it onto a larger sensor camera, such as like a Nikon D850 or a Z7 II with the adapter. What happens then is that lens still works, but it then changes the crop factor or basically kind of the magnification of that lens. So what originally was a 50 to 100 millimeter, I can take that number and you can see where it says APS-C is 1.52. If I bring that up to a full frame, it's a 1.0. So I need to take that APS-C number and apply it to my lens. So a 50 millimeter at times 1.5, we'll say, brings me up to 75 millimeters. And at the longer end, the 100 millimeters, or to multiply that by 1.5, takes me out to 150. So I can get different lenses for different sensor sizes and get more zoom or get wider based on the combination that I have. That's something that with phone cameras, you can't do because, well, the way I look at it is the lenses that I have here, my three on my phone, those are the three that I'm stuck with. I can't change the lens. I can't go in and I can't actually, throw a lens on or take a lens off. I'm stuck with whatever my phone camera has. The other thing that comes into play outside of sensor sizes comes into play, and you've probably seen ads for this on, commercials, and you've seen ads for this, every year when Apple rolls out their new iPhones, you see Google Pixel talking about this, is going to be their megapixels. Now, megapixels is kind of a fallacy in a way when it comes to the understanding of the resolution of your image. My phone camera, I believe it holds, it's 22 megapixels on a phone camera, which in the phone's grand scheme of things, that's a large image. But the play that comes into it is when you go back to the sensor size is you will have a very small sensor versus a larger image, versus a DSLR mirrorless on a larger frame sensor. And the reason that can be different is because when you try and zoom in, so if you've ever taken a picture on your phone and you zoom in a bunch, what you will notice happens is there is going to be a lot more pixelation. It's going to be a lot noisier. And that correlates with your sensor size and having a digital zoom versus an optical zoom. So sitting before me here, I have two different lenses that I kind of wanted to talk about. Sitting here, right here, is a 24 to 105 from Canon. And that kind of correlates pretty similar with a lot of the standard zoom lenses on a phone. Now, when I zoom in on this lens here, you will see that the lens actually is rotating and it gets larger. I'll do it kind of here on the side. So what you are noticing here is as the lens gets larger, there are glass elements within the lens moving, and that is called optical zooming. That is the actual glass and the appearance of what the image sensor is seeing is changing. Now, if I go through on my phone here and I'm, saying I'm going to zoom in, by taking two fingers and zooming in, nothing is changing on the front of my lens. And the reason that is happening is because what is happening is I'm applying a digital zoom to my image. So I'm not actually changing how the sensor is seeing it. Rather, I'm cropping inwards and making that image and stretching it, which is why if you've ever taken a picture and you've tried to blow it up to a larger size, such as an 8x10 or, a 24x30 from a phone, it's going to have a lot of that noise and that graininess and that pixelation to it, because when you zoomed in, you didn't actually zoom in necessarily. You just cropped the image in further. That's where lenses on an actual camera can come into play here. Based on what you are shooting, you can get different lenses and you can go ahead and you can actually still retain that original size of your sensor without cropping in at all, but you're just zooming in still because of that optical zoom. So that's kind of the main two, is having that sensor size that you can control your low light, and as well as being able to optically zoom in with lenses versus digital zoom on a phone camera. So the last thing I want to say, though, is if you are someone that's been using a phone camera and you've had some great experiences with it still, because phone cameras have come a long way. I won't deny that. But what I would implore you to do, though, is try an actual camera. Try a DSLR, try a mirrorless, or even try a point and shoot. If you're not looking to spend a ton of money, though, but you still want to explore it, through our website, we have a full list of rentals that you can access. So the cameras and the lenses you see sitting in front of me, these are all rentals that you can go ahead and try out for yourself. This here we rent out as a kit. So you can see what I've been playing with today. You can try this out for yourself. And the whole list is online. So rather than spending, hundreds and thousands of dollars, on, full gear lineups, to take away, rather what you could do is you could go ahead and you can just take it for a day or two, try it out and see what you think. So with that being said, that's kind of the overview and kind of the key differences that I've found to be really crucial when it comes to understanding the difference between your phone versus an actual mirrorless or a DSLR. If you're someone that, like I said, is intrigued to try this out and kind of see it for yourself, I implore you, come on in, take a look on our website, see what we have for rentals. And we would love to chat with you here in the store about what options we can give you to try it out for yourself. For those who tuned in, thank you so much. I will see you next week. But until then, happy shooting.